Hello again, welcome back everyone. Liquorhound here with you. Thank you for joining me once again for another spirit review video. Now today we're going to be taking a look at a couple of wonderful single malt Scotch whiskies coming to us from the Ardbeg Distillery. Now last year they came out with the Supernova once again, the SN2014 committee release of Supernova, and they're going to follow it up with the final committee release of Supernova, the SN2015, which is just now hitting the shelves. I was lucky enough to find this bottle. I'm trying to get this video out to you so when you do see it on the shelves, because it may not be there very long, if you decide that's what you want to do and spend $160 to $180 a bottle, because that's what these are running, you can make that decision then. Alright, now the whole Supernova line originally started back in 2009 when they did the first release. They did a second in 2010. They did not do any more until the 2014-2015 conclusions. And the whole reason for these were simply because Ardbeg was doing the experiment of shipping a vial of, I guess, Ardbeg 10 they shipped out into space. And they wanted to see what the effects of maturation would be in zero gravity for 3 years compared to the same Ardbeg whiskey that was being aged down in Houston, Texas for those same 3 years. Well, from 2009 to 2015 it has done the 3 years, it's actually back down, and now they are doing the comparison. None of that whiskey is in any of these, don't be confused by that. But the thing to note about the Supernova line was they were known as being the most heavily peated Ardbegs produced. The 2009 and 2010 that I actually tasted, they were leaning more on the sherry. They were very, very nice, very refined Ardbeg. The 2014, when I had it, I was like, wow, it's really good, but it's really big. It's big on smoke. Kind of how Lafroig, the old Lafroigs, single Isla Lafroigs, those were more refined tasting, leaning more on delicate flavors. The smoke's there, but it's not medicinal iodine like it is now. The new Lafroigs are heavily iodined. You know, that's what you taste now is like what everybody thinks Lafroig tastes like, but it's not. They used to be very, very different. Same thing for Ardbeg. But I will say that Ardbeg has not changed as dramatically as the Lafroigs. They do different experimentations, like when they did Perpetuum, which actually came out right in between these two releases. Perpetuum was very, very nice. It was the 200th anniversary edition. It was full of fruits, very, very delicate whiskey, very soft Ardbeg. It was kind of a shock to my system because I wasn't expecting that for their 200th anniversary, but it was what it was, okay? So if you want a softer style of Ardbeg, go Perpetuum. These Supernovas are not that. These are bottled using malted barley that is 100 ppm of phenol content. What that simply means is it's heavily smoked malted barley. And the way that works is when they start the germination process on the barley, because they don't just take the grain and just start mashing it in. What they actually do is they get it damp, they spread it out on the floor, they let it start to germinate, just to grow just that little bit of sprout, and the second that grain cracks is when they want to stop that process, because now it contains an enzyme in there called amylase, and the amylase is what's used to convert the starches, and it really helps convert the starches into sugars when it's being fermented. So what they do is they smoke it, okay? They start burning the peat down underneath these malting floors. The smoke comes up, goes through the grain, imparts the smoke, but also kills the grain. Now, once they smoke it for a certain amount of time, depending on what distillery is asking for what phenol content, they actually start burning coal because maybe they only want 40 ppm or 20 ppm. So once they hit that level, they start burning coal because now we just want the heat. We just want to completely dry out the malt so that they can ship it to the distilleries. Well, here we're talking 100 parts per million. That's much, much higher than the typical Ardbeg, which is roughly around 40 or so. I know some of the Port Charlotte actually calls for about 40 ppm on the label. That new Isla barley, for example, the Octomore from Brooklotic, that one's calling for 160 and up. I think the new release is going to be like 248 ppm, so a really high content. But that does not equate to a super smoky whiskey. Let's not be confused, because even though it's a very, very intensely smoked piece of barley, once they distill it, depending on the stills they use and the cuts they make, and then when they mature it, the longer a whiskey matures, the actual phenol count actually goes down. So if it's 16 years old, it will have lost a lot of that. And then when they blend it, again, that's another aspect to it, that doesn't necessarily equate. If it's 100 ppm or 248 ppm, doesn't mean that it's going to be the smokiest whiskey ever. They actually don't want that. They want to balance it. They want to make it intriguing for your palate. But anyway, okay, back to the grain, back to the whiskey. 54.3 ABV on the 2015, 55% on the 2014. Okay, both no age statements. We're going to start with the 2014 on the nose. So nice. I remember when I first smelled this one, I was like, wow, that's big. The smoke comes out of the glass immediately. I mean, when you first pour them, you're going to smell the smoke. It's creosote, it's ash, it's a little bit of that soot character. But when you smell it, you do smell the Ardbeg tin in it. You do smell those little bit of lemon peels, red berries in here, kind of hearkening back to Ugadal, but much more smoky. A little bit of vanilla custard. This one actually has licorice or licorice root in here, kind of an earthiness. Maybe some chocolates. A little bit of mint. Cinnamon for sure. And a touch of that brine, just kind of adding a little bit of that salt to it. Very, very nice. Big on the smoke though. Big on the right up front. Alright, 2015. Oh. Wow. Much more balanced. The 2015 is actually very, very good combination of fruits. Red fruits up front. Almost like a sweet caramel. Oh yeah, that's nice. It's not about the smoke up front. A little bit of that lemon peel, definitely some vanilla custard in this one. So it's almost like if you remove some of the smoke off of this one, that's what you get here. There is a little more cinnamon in this one than I found in the 2014. But this one seems more balanced, let's say. Okay, so 2015, let's get to the palate. 2014 is very, very sweet feeling. Immediately as upon entry, it's sweet, fairly oily, a little more than medium. Wow. But just as you swallow, you get that intense red fruits, a little bit of stewed fruits behind those, so a little bit of like plums, a little bit of those to go with those berries, but they've been stewed a little bit. Citrus zest, lemon peels, not orange, a little bit of that lemon zest. Wow. And then you get the cinnamon. It doesn't really intensify on the mid palate, but it shows up there. What actually intensifies on the mid palate is the smoke. That, again, sooty, creosote, ashy smoke that you get initially kind of grows and it starts billowing into the finish. Man, it hasn't relinquished yet. Vanilla custard. Everything about this one, the red berries that I picked up on the nose, the lemon peel, everything, the cinnamon, everything is in here. It's even chocolate, but it's underneath the smoke. The smoke is, gosh, it's intense. Really, really nice. I mean, you think it when you swallow it, you're like, oh, this is going to be a great Ardbeg. That's just typical Ardbeg, and then all of a sudden, boom, here comes this billowing smoke. Again, thankfully, it does not go into plasticine. Sometimes those smoky qualities can turn like asphalt, tar, plastics. I don't like that. When they start doing that, it's like a little too much. This one's not doing that. It's staying on the ash. You can just picture those malting floors and that smoke billowing through it when you're tasting this. Really, really nice. And of course, you're right there by the seaside, so you're getting that brine quality to it, salted caramel quality to it, but it's just underneath the smoke. On to the 2015, little sip of water here. I did add a drop of water prior to this shooting the video just so I could crack that whiskey, let it open up just a little bit. 54.3%. Wow. Softer. Perhaps not as oily or as sweet as the 2014, but I will say that it's more balanced. There's a fair amount of sweetness, it's just not as sweet. Initially, right up front, the berry rush, the cinnamon sticks. Matter of fact, the cinnamon actually swells on that mid palate. As the cinnamon intensifies, it's when the smoke kind of comes in. It actually comes in like a fog. Really, really light at first, kind of grows on that mid palate, and then it just kind of fades. It doesn't billow out smoke like the 2014 did. They actually tried on this one, I think, to pour a little more sherried whiskeys in it, so you got a little more vibrancy to the red fruits up front. A little more of that typical Ardbeg lemon zest can be found easier on this one because you're not having to fight through the smoke. Vanilla custard. There is a little bit of that, but I label it as white pepper. It's kind of yeah, I guess white pepper in cinnamon, because that spice is not just cinnamon spice. There's a little bit of that white pepper element to it. Cocoa powder on the back end of this one. And again, the ash is the smoke is ash, soot, tobacco ash, that type of thing. But it's not super intense. It's actually really, really nicely balanced in this one. Of the two, I think they're both great. I'm not going to say I'd prefer this one, the 2014, over the 2015, or because of the big billowing smoke, or the 2015 because of the vibrancy of the fruits. I can see both of them being, depending on the evening, depending on your mood. What do you feel like? Do you feel like a little sweeter, smokier whiskey, or do you feel like a little more vibrancy of the fruits to complement that smoke? That would be the 2015. Again, they're retailing around 150 to as high as maybe 180. So if you see them on your shelves, I do think they're very, very big Ardbegs. They do harken back to the true aspect of what Ardbeg is. So I think they're both great buys. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Everybody have a great evening, and cheers.